So in this video, I'm going to discuss final details and last minute touch-ups on the plate. You can see I still have my plate on the plastic plate I provided you with a dry paper towel barrier, and I'm going to keep it on there for support still for a while until I'm officially done. The dot at the top of the plate, I'll explain later. There's a dot on the hummingbird head, that's the eye, but the other dot I'll explain later. Anyhow, I recommend using a dull pencil to clean out your lines, or a chopstick, as I mentioned in the last video. That worked out best for me. Both tools here had kind of a nice chunky point or tip that made it easy to carve out those lines. So you can see I've got some marker line that transferred, but I'm not worried about that. I'll be covering that up with paint. I've gone around and just, accentuated each line by making them a little cleaner, a little deeper. But the problem in doing that is sometimes you create clay crumbs. You guys know from the past, when you carve through clay, it can kind of crumble up. So I recommend taking the paintbrush that I provided you, make sure it's dry, and go over those lines and simply brush away any crumbs. So take your dry paintbrush and brush away crumbs, as you saw me do a few seconds ago, just to clean out those lines. Another thing you can do is get the paintbrush damp. So you dunk it in water and then push out most of the water and go through your lines again, and what that will do is soften any jagged edges. So use a dry paintbrush to remove clay crumbs. Use a damp paintbrush to soften up any sharp edges. You can even use your pinky or your thumb if you prefer, if that works better than the paintbrush. But just go round and round through every line and do a final softening of that line, because it could get jagged as a result of carving. And I'm pretty happy with it at this point. I'm just kind of doing a final assessment, final check, just to make sure I've removed crumbs and that all areas have been softened up. So when it comes to this assignment, you can use this object as a plate, or you can hang it on the wall. Regardless, you may want to carve your initials in, as I'm doing right now, TN. You can barely see it. You don't have to carve your initials. That's important for in class, of course, so I can differentiate work from everybody, but at home it's not a big deal. It's just a personal preference if you want to sign it or have your initials on there. Maybe carve in the year, make it a historical souvenir. In any case, if you do want to hang it on the wall, you're going to want to take the clay plate off of the plastic plate. You might have some paper towel texture on the back. I wouldn't worry about that too much. You can clean that up if you want. And also maybe save this blue plate. Maybe you'll have scrap clay later in a future project, and you can kind of create another plate for funsies. It's up to you. Anyhow, so I've decided to make my plate a wall hanging, so I'm not going to put it on a table. If you want to do that, drill a little hole near the top of the plate, but not too far up. You want it slightly away from the edge. A pencil width is good, maybe Sharpie marker width is good. If the hole is too close to the edge of the plate, it could cause a crack, because you're basically dealing with a narrow margin of clay. So mark out a dot and then proceed to take your chopstick and kind of push and twist through. So you're kind of drilling through the plate. And be mindful of the back of the plate and how that's looking. Obviously make sure the front of the plate is nice looking as well. You want that hole to be clean and clear. The back will have a bit of a jagged edge that could scratch up your wall, so you don't want that. So you're going to want to clean up the back as well, and make sure there's nothing sharp there. You don't want any sharp clay scratching up your wall. So just clean that up a bit. Make sure the hole on the back is decent. And at this point, you're going to want to let your clay sit out and dry. And we'll talk about painting this with acrylic to give it a full stained glass effect. Later in a few weeks, we'll talk about painting.